Led by a lifelong interest in healing, Dr. Linda Salvin pursued an advanced degree in epidemiology. Then, after dramatic near-death experiences, Dr. Linda saw the other side and returned with gifts of insight, visions, and revealed wisdom. Now those gifts are ongoing, and she's here to share them with you. Get ready to be amazed. It's time for Dr. Linda Salvin's Psychic Solutions Podcast with America's original radio psychic, Dr. Linda Salvin, offering up her always fascinating blend of psychic psychology, clairvoyant insights, and expert guests and alternative healing methods. So pull up a chair and get ready for a visit with the one and only Dr. Linda. And now, live from Los Angeles, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Linda Salvin.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back for another segment, edition, whatever you want to call it, the Psychic Solutions Podcast. I am Dr. Linda Salvin. Every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you find me somewhere out there on any of the platforms. And if you're listening live and you're over at YouTube, click the little subscribe. You'll hear the little bell, and we're adding more and more viewers lately, which is great. So I want you to add as well. Today's show is going to be a little different as far as the type of guest I have. It's not metaphysics. He's not in the woo-woo per se, or having a near-death experience. Anything I usually talk about. He's a business owner. What kind of business owner? He owns a restaurant. He's a restaurateur. He's a chef. He's well known here in the Los Angeles area. He's got the most amazing barbecue in the world. Let's bring on Chef Aaron Robbins. I've been eating at his joints for what, like 20 years? Hi, Aaron. How you doing? How many?
Close to 18 years.
Yeah. We live in Sherman Oaks, Studio City. It's the San Fernando Valley, Encino. There's a whole valley here in the Los Angeles area, and he has a restaurant called Boneyard Bistro. Didn't you have, like, what was the one down the street where Castita is now? But you were in there.
We had a high-end restaurant called Soca.
That's right. I love Soca. I loved that restaurant. But
we hear it every week.
You know,
6 years later, we still hear it every week.
That's why you're on the show, because I get a lot of people in my private practice who want to start a business. Well, what do you want to do? I don't know. Well, I want to cook. I want to sew. I want to have a platform. I want to have a show. But what do you want to do? What's your focus? So Aaron's going to talk about owning a restaurant, going up and down the roller coaster that we all experience when there's inflation and recession and the pandemic. Everybody gets hit in different ways. So I want you to hear from Aaron, who got, since you were 13 or younger, you've had a passion for food and then the restaurant. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then we'll talk about the different topics.
Well, I'm Aaron.
You're a husband, a father, and you make the most amazing barbecue in the world.
We've been in business 18 years. I've been cooking since the age of, or barbecuing since 12. I was cooking since like 5.
Wow.
Always loved food. And kind of did other things for a while, and then what I wanted to do was cook. And Boneyard was created started putting it on paper about 20 years ago. So it has grown. In 2010, we doubled our size in the middle of the recession.
I remember that. You expanded the other build next door.
One of the things when things are rough, comfort food kind of has a role. And there was a weird evolution in food that was happening in around 2008, 2010. I think due to the recession, the high-end market kind of wasn't as while it's always there, it was not as prominent because people just couldn't afford it. And the gastropub revolution began, which we were already kind of in it. It kind of looked like it before it happened.
You were kind of at the forefront. I can agree with that.
You were definitely at the forefront of that and the beer revolution. So the craft beer revolution. And then, things went well for quite a long time. We opened up the other restaurant Typically, we seem to be ahead of the curve on things, kind of have an idea of where the trend's about to go. I think where we were, it was just a little too, I think we reached a little far for our neighborhood. I think
Maybe
they wanted it, but weren't quite ready for what it is.
the
Now I
Democrats,
think they're pretty ready for it.
people don't understand all the variables, Aaron, and this is what I wanted you to help define, because you're right in the middle of it. Yes, we live in a more high-end, affluent area compared to some of the other communities in the Valley, LA, but Aaron's restaurant's on the boulevard. It's the main strip of the San Fernando Valley, and that's where Restaurant Rows are in Studio City, Sherman Oaks, whatever. And over the last few years, it's really blossomed again. There's been a lot of new restaurants going in, and there's a lot of empty stores. So people are in and out. You're the survivor. That's what is so wonderful, because people who call me, well, I want this, it didn't work, what do I do? Here's somebody who's seasoned people. It's a ride. It's up and down, and you have to go everywhere from the what you're paying for your rent, all the way to the napkins, all the way to your employees. And Aaron is really lucky because he's got faithful employees that have been with him for almost the whole time.
Pretty long time, yeah.
Yeah. No, they love you.
Years for one of them.
Right. You treat them right, and then that you become your own little family when you can hold on to that. I have longevity too. A lot of people have the revolving door. You go into a place, oh, who's the new waiter? Who's this? Or who's the new salesperson? It's uncomfortable when you finally establish a relationship, but you've held on and you've stayed strong. But a lot of people don't understand why the prices are inflating, why these fees are being added or hidden. Talk about the reality of business in today's market. Food, cattle. I mean, you got to buy the beef. Where's the beef?
Well, it's a huge ripple that happens. They keep raising that minimum wage up every year. It does. I understand some of the motivation for it, but the way it ripples causes a lot of other problems that people don't really take into account. A lot of people think we're just paying our staff a little more, and that's just not the reality of what it is. Yes, we're paying the staff more. It costs more to operate. It costs more in insurance. It costs more in that. However, it also starts out at the farm because their wages went up. So
does the feed, and so does maintaining the farm.
Exactly.
And just even going to slaughter. I mean, starts somewhere. It's constant.
Every level, from the feed and getting it onto the truck driver taking it to the next ranch, the ranch going out and feeding, and all those hands, from there to the processors, all those hands, the trucks again, the distribution, the trucks again, all those things layer out. And as they layer out, the product coming in is elevated in price to accommodate all these increased costs. Then you add other beyond normal things. Is it raining a lot? Is it not raining a lot? Water, etc. The cost of electricity, everything else, and all those wages go up. Workman's goes up with it because that's a percentage, and so those costs increase. By the time we get it, our wages have gone up, and it costs more to get people. And what's awful is the people who had worked their way up, they don't get the raise. The bottom gets the raise. So at a certain point, they're going to cost more and everything goes up. So what should have cost, $15 on your plate,
it's now $5 or $30. It's almost double.
Exactly. And it's like, well, that seems just a little bit to have to give, your servers $1 more. But you didn't give the servers, the cooks, the dishwashers, all those, plus that product that may have come in at a raw cost of $5 is not $5 anymore. It's now
No,
$8 to $10.
because the butcher had to raise his price because of his
And the farm.
connection
Right.
and that's what
It's exponential.
People don't understand. Like, if I'm selling candles, I have to pay for the candles, I have to pay for the oils, I have to pay for the powders, I got to pay for the paper, I got to pay for the labor, I got to pay for the shipping. And they think, well, how come the rates went up? Well, it's costing me more to buy the raw materials. Same thing in the food business. It's called raw materials, people, as to getting it all together. Everything from toilet paper and paper towels in the bathroom to the silverware and cups and water and dishes and food.
There's so many layers.
Food, just the food. It's a beautiful presentation. Oh my God, it's so good. But what goes inside behind the scenes? It's a production like any other.
Well, California had drought for
Yeah.
a couple years.
Yeah.
The cost of tomatoes, it went so high, and you go, well, this is tomato.
The farmer.
Tomato sauce, ketchup, canned tomatoes, barbecue sauces, all those things use tomatoes. So when the price goes up 40%, it triggers everything else. Believe it or not, the war in Ukraine affects flour prices here.
Explain that.
That's the wheat.
That's where the flowers come from.
Europe. So they want more. They need product coming in from US to there. Everything's interlinked. Everything costs. And the reality is, little guys like us don't have the buying power of the chains. So as we keep giving more power to them and feeding them, the little guys keep getting squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And then you get a choice of chain restaurants to eat at.
And then we talked about that when I was in with my friend a week ago about the chain restaurants or the fast food restaurants. I don't want to just mention names, but some of the, quote, fast food burgers for your kids, it might have been $8, is now, you can't get out for maybe $15 for your meal. They're going up. And that's automated. It's not just paying employees to give you a bag of food. It's all, you push a button and fewer people are working because technology takes over. But on the other side of all of this, what do you believe or see with regards to what I keep hearing about the food shortage and the famine that they're starting to do, because the rural, meaning the truckers and the farmers and everybody, versus the urban, meaning the city and the buyers and everything, they're going to start clashing where the farmers don't want to deliver because the rural don't want to pay. The urban don't want to pay. Is this going to happen? Do you see or hear anything about this food shortage that they're supposedly threatening us with, or is that conspiracy? Do you know?
I don't know. I know we've been dealing with it a lot of the game for the last, since especially it started a little bit before COVID. During COVID, a lot of the different parts of the food world started catching on to what some of the big boys were doing and on how, the big boys were able to manipulate all sides. They would come to the consumer and go, sorry, price, we can't process. And then they'd flip back to the other side, the producing side, and go, sorry, we don't have any staff to actually handle the product. You have to just either pitch it or whatever. And then they would say, you know what, we'll give you a deal. We'll figure it out, but we can't pay you that much. So on one end, they're paying less and charging more. So there's a lot of money to be made. And let me tell you, the food industry, the big part, it's about dollars. Don't let anybody tell you it's not. It is.
Everything is. Business is business. It's always about money. Military is about money. Education's about money. Food's about money. Clothing's about money. You can be spiritual. You want to help people. If I were really in it for the money, I'd probably be an attorney. But the average person, Aaron is not sitting on millions and millions and millions of profit, people, just because he owns amazing restaurants. The owner, I have read the stories in the paper online where they have to close or they file bankruptcy, but I was just there. Their food was so good. And, the service is great. What happens behind the scenes where you're actually upside down, meaning you're in the red, meaning you've got more bills than you have income coming in and you can't sustain the restaurant? So people think this is so wonderful, but you're struggling on the back end like a lot of people. Talk about that. You've been through it.
It's become the reality. Last year for Los Angeles, I think the Times put it out, the pretty much the worst year on record for restaurants shutting down. 24 is off to the races already.
You mean in a positive way, or that we're starting some slumps?
No, last year there were so many closures, it was absurd. COVID rewired how people think. Like I know prior to COVID, rainy days,
People showed up.
Now, nope, they're on the couch in their jammies. If they order in, great, but half the time they'll find what's in the fridge. It is great during COVID that people learned how to cook. That's a good thing.
Yeah, but during COVID, I ordered a lot of takeout with your ribs. I'd come get a huge bag.
They did. The first part of COVID, the first third of COVID, the first year, definitely. And again, it fit that comfort model where people were scared.
We didn't know what was going on. It was all brand new. We'd never experienced.
Nobody knew how to cook.
Yeah.
And you wanted familiarity, and because we've been around for so long, the fact that we had people coming in to pick up and literally like tears rolling, thanking us for being open. It was their kid's birthday. They only wanted Boneyard, and they were thrilled. And that first year was unbelievable. We were being as creative as possible because we know on takeout, there's no risk. You're not going to gamble. When you come into the restaurant, you try our specials and what we're doing. When you're taking it home, if it isn't exactly what you were hoping for, you got a big problem. So we were doing specials, but we were really kind of doing crazy creative stuff that worked for the family. The only downside of it all was our brand, which is this weird elastic brand of barbecue, but also creative.
You're just not a cheeseburger and salad joint. You're not.
And we're not just a barbecue spot. We work the high end, we look the creative side, and during COVID we became barbecue. It just was like barbecue, which has been a tough thing to get people back into trying everything else we do. However, as they reopened us throughout COVID, the challenges of the business really started to amplify because we had limited capacity, but yet we had to operate like we had pretty much full capacity. So we had more staffing on. That was challenging. People were kind of coming back, but not really. It was just
we had the mandates. We had to see, some people wanted to see if you had the card and you were vaccinated, and others had to wear a mask, or you were outside with the tent, and then you had, I don't know if you did.
You had to have 8 feet. You had to have like 6 feet between tables.
Yeah, and then
capacity was down to 20%.
And then plastic or bamboo utensils, all of it had to change really fast. On top of it,
they didn't know what they were talking about.
And expense, half of it. I read something that one guy just said, just call it 6 feet. A lot of it was just not, it was not.
No, I mean, we were there with the tape measures. We were doing what we're supposed to do.
Everything compliant.
And it's amazing how everybody was thrilled to sit outside it was 42 degrees. But now if it's 70, it's a little cold.
That's
it's
funny.
Like, it's kind of funny how on some things have returned. But people, the whole mindset changed.
Well, spiritually, this is where I come in with what I deal with. I believe it's been kind of like I don't want to say brainwashing, but we've all shifted our consciousness. All of us are a little less sensitive or a little more lazy, like you're saying, stay home instead of going out, or not dealing with the rain. And I'm guilty. I was supposed to go to a place in Toluca Lake last night, 3 weeks in a row. My friend and I have canceled because of the rain. She was coming in from Pasadena. I was coming in from the Valley. It's like, all right, we'll cancel. So I feel bad for the restaurant that had my reservation, but we didn't feel like going out in the rain, and we were tired, and it was Monday. There's always something. It's not the same spark that we had in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, life itself everywhere has changed. And then we went through what I call the hallway of transformation. When that COVID lockdown hit, that was the beginning of whatever we're still in now, of this change of life. I mean, we feel different. You're raising kids, you're married, you got the business, you're out there, but there's still a different frequency that is not like, it's like we went through the looking glass, but we don't know where we're going. You know, we're all kind of trying to figure this out, but we hold on. The beauty with you and Boneyard is you held on. You're still thriving. You're still when I left the other day, it was empty, but when I got there, it was rather empty for lunch. But by the time my friend and I left, it was filling up, and it was later afternoon. And I said to Kathy, most of your nights are packed. You know, you still have a thriving.
It's getting there. It's still,
is it coming back?
It's different. Like you're saying, the frequency is different.
Yeah.
There is a different energy. The crowd comes in earlier. 6 is the new 7.
Yes, it is. And I see that too. I don't know if it's because we're older. Look, I'm 70 now. When I was 40, I'd leave at 9 o'clock, you know.
We had a decade of a crowd that came in at 8:39 at night, and you know, they'd have bites, you know, drinks.
It was fun and lively and party.
And it's not as much anymore. I will say this: February on the non-raining nights, we've seen a lot more of it than I have in the last few years.
That's good, because usually February and July are the slowest months, especially in
January is the stinker. So January, you have dry January, and this was the driest on record.
Wow.
I mean, it was definitely, I mean, even reps from our liquor distribution and all that, they weren't hitting numbers because everybody was not doing it. We had plenty of mocktails, but there's something about going out to a restaurant or a bar. It's like, I want my drink, and instead they're like, fake drink. So, you know, but yeah, fake drink's okay. Mocktails are fine. But you guys, everyone's got to remember that.
Rebel, I need the phone number.
Just because you didn't want to have a drink doesn't mean you're not eating. I mean, we get to deal with Lent right now.
Yeah.
So it's always something. But it's.
Thank you.
I don't think most people really understand how important in the ecosystem of local businesses.
And that's just a restaurant. We're talking one industry. This is one location, people. When you drive by and you see all the fast food joints on every corner, on every highway, whenever you're traveling, and they're nationwide and then they're international, this is just one man's experience in one business. And you guys, when you're calling me, you're asking about, how do I start a business? Well, the last person I spoke to, I said, do you have an LLC? Do you have a title? Do you have a name? Have you talked to a tax accountant? Have you talked to getting your tax and fee structure? Well, what's that? So I have to explain, well, if you're in the state of Pennsylvania, you got to go find out your tax and fee, because you're going to have to charge taxes on products. Why? So they want to start a business. They got all the ideas. They don't even know where to start. So, you know, there's a lot involved on the business end, where the fun part isn't always about the food. The fun part's not always the business.
No.
It's the business. It's music business. Entertainment is business. Everybody thinks, oh, it looks so easy.
No, the work that goes in for me to go in and play is insane.
What about if somebody breaks a glass and then you have to
got to buy a new glass?
Exactly. Or they steal your silverware, or they break a plate, or somebody drops when they're delivering. You got all these. How do you hold it together? I mean, I know there's times you've had a.
I don't know.
There's times you let go, because I've heard it.
I mean, what people don't see, they don't see. You know, my job is to go out there and put on the happy face and all that. There is no doubt people can. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a great poker player. You know, I kind of wear my emotions on my sleeve. I don't think anybody would go, oh, he's having the time of his life right now.
No.
And it's frustrating because there's not a lot of people I get to talk to about the realities of it. And even if I am talking to them, it's still limited. Let me tell you, it's tough. It's brutal.
Well, that's why I invited you on the show today, because a friend of mine took me for a belated birthday lunch and she hadn't been and I'd been. I said, oh, you got to try this. And there's so much food. You give an ample amount of food. You're not leaving hungry ever with going to the Boneyard Bistro in Sherman Oaks. If you're ever out here, or if you're listening and you're local, go in and say hi to Aaron. Tell him you heard about him on Dr. Linda. But the quality, I can't eat sugar, so I can get ribs that aren't rubbed. And Aaron has always accommodated my nutritional needs, and he does it for everybody. He stood there and talked to us like 25 minutes while we were having lunch a few weeks ago. And that's when I said, come on the show, because he's a personable guy. He wants people in the restaurant to see what's going on. But I've chit-chatted with him and my sister and my parents through the years. So you develop your relationships and your community people. You can do that. If you'd like to call in, I know there's a lot of you in the chat today, which is lovely. Why don't you call in and ask Aaron a question, or me, 561-623-9421. We've got about 15 minutes left in the broadcast. But if you have a question or you're stuck in your own business, it doesn't matter what the product is. Business has its own formula. It's always about inventory and the money and the cost out, the cost in, and how it's presented. It's hard to juggle 1,000 different pieces of the moving parts to make it look, wow, look at that beautiful bar. Look at the backlight. Look at the tables. Look at the patio. Look at this. Look at how the presentation is. Look at that dessert. But it's all planned. It didn't just happen overnight. Do you dream about food? Does your wife come up with some of the ideas with you?
My wife, definitely not. I love her, but food is not her thing.
That's her thing. Yeah. But
I dream about food.
Recipes?
I read and study a lot. I definitely have my styles. I think my range is really, really wide for the food industry. I think right now we've been running, especially on those quicker serve restaurants, things are very singular. You go to that restaurant for that one thing they do, which is a great business model if you're really good and it's really in demand. If you go, I think a lot of people don't realize is, as chefs, especially us with broad training and actual like culinary degrees and different levels. I started as Michelin star. We can do a lot of things. Just because I do barbecue is my hobby,
right,
since I was 12. But I started cooking professionally at a Michelin star restaurant. So the background is very broad. And because I was exposed to so many kinds of cuisine, my range is really wide.
Was Soca more of a Latino flavor, Latin, Spanish?
It had a strong Peruvian undertone to it.
Oh man, I bet you'll bring it back.
There was Asian influence, but Peruvian food there's native Peruvian food, and then there's Peruvian food, which is heavily influenced by Japan. So
I didn't know that.
Nobu's Japanese, Peruvian.
Really?
So there's a lot of world influence, and that's was just the undertone of the food, was that Peruvian gave us a little more freedom.
Yeah, but see, I just wanted people to see, like, we're talking barbecue, we're talking ribs, we're talking salads, we're talking rolls, we're talking potatoes, we're talking sauces. Now we're going Peruvian. Now we're going into a whole different mindset.
It was still very wood grilled, wood fired there, but it was the steakhouse kind of turned on its head a little bit, with a more global type of steakhouse versus traditional American steakhouse. People loved it, but it was high end and timing was off.
I
we
think at
made
the
some
right
mistakes.
place, wrong time. It was just, but yeah, I was in there quite a bit. I loved all of it, but it happens. And I bet on the emotional, because yes, you're very sensitive. You're a great guy when it comes to just expressing yourself. So even when it's your baby and you're giving it birth and you're creating the menus and you're creating the prices and you're hiring people to staff and you're getting all the food and you're getting to the fish markets or you're getting to the steak or whatever. And then you had to get the sauces and put it all together. And then when you had to say, I can't do it anymore. I
That's
can't
rough.
go on. Talk about that, because that's the human
That's the pain.
Yep.
It's a weird thing. It's kind of, I would imagine it to being
It's depressing.
Almost an alcoholic or an addict and going and hitting rock bottom and letting go and surrendering. So on that level,
good analogy, Aaron.
on that level, the emotional pain is brutal. At the same time as that release happens, there's a relief. It doesn't take away the pain. I kind of also do people. It's kind of like watching a child die.
It is, because it's yours. You created it and it's gone. But it doesn't mean you were a failure.
I think as a regular business, one thing. I think as far as something that, because I put so much of myself into it, that it's just it just guts you. But then you do pick yourself up, and go back to it. I often ask myself, what else would I do? This is what I do.
Are you planning on opening another? Do you have another idea of another?
Yeah, we have an idea for another one, or a boneyard 2.0, so to speak.
Yeah.
In a different area.
Are you looking more towards August, September, October? Because it looks like, I can see it looks more towards end of summer that this is going to start taking off with legs here. So I think you're pretty.
I would love to see that happen. You probably have more insight than I do.
I'll come in.
You're kind of known for that. We can talk later about that.
Yeah, I'll come in and have a plate of ribs and we'll discuss it.
There we go. I think there's, one of the things like with barbecue that's always a concern, especially with the business end, is there is an excessively high labor. What people don't realize is barbecue doesn't, you don't just cook it to order. It's you gotta take a guess on what you're going to do that day, and it starts at like 6:30 in the morning.
Well, that's another thing people don't know, because it's not just putting a steak on the grill. You've got to
not at all.
You've got to let it steam. You got to cook it. You got to get it tenderized.
Oh, it's got to smoke.
The sauce.
It's a long brisket can take 12 hours, 14 hours. And what's funny is steak on the grill. Steak's like, people ask me what my favorite thing is, and I tell them it's the steak, and they just look at me like, your barbecue. It's like, the guy who knows how to cook meat might know how to cook a steak. Steak is definitely my wheelhouse. But yeah, the labor number with barbecue is something I think a lot of people miss, because they say, why is barbecue expensive? It's all protein. It's extensive amount of labor. The wood prices are literally off the charts now. Everything about what we do costs a lot.
You just mentioned brisket. It reminds me of an article I read a few years ago, and there's a documentary online somewhere. I don't remember if it's Netflix or whatnot. Maybe it's Amazon Video. I don't know. But it was a whole story as to why the Jewish delis closed. Most of the delis closed for the same reason you're discussing here, to cook the pastrami, the corned beef, the brisket, the cost involved, even to make bagels.
Oh, it's crazy.
That's why most of the New York delis closed. Look what's happened around here. Most of our delis don't exist anymore. We grew up on lox and bagels.
But we'll pay a lot for bagels.
It's not like it was.
But it's expensive. I mean, bagels are expensive now.
People don't understand it.
It's not, but yeah, the pastrami, the cost to bake pastramis.
Was it like 15 hours just to have one?
It takes a week to cure it.
Does it? Is it a week? Wow.
It's a week, 7 days, 8 days. Then it's got to smoke for hours and hours and hours. Then it's got to steam. It's a whole process. We do Texas pastrami once in a while, and it's amazing, but
it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Do you still do the boils?
We just did one on Valentine's Day.
Well, let us know, because I'd love to come in.
And that one, their case in point, king crab now.
It's expensive.
It's typically a product of Russia, so there's a problem. They've canceled the seasons. There's a problem. So king crab is so expensive. Crawfish, the season is going to be awful. Everything is so expensive. I don't blame it. I wouldn't want to buy it. It's just not. We have to pick and choose where we spend. And, we want to give people a very high quality meal. But it's just not as economical as it once was.
No, but you're doing the best you can to be within a range that's still comfortable without turning people away. Yes, there are some that can't, and I get it, because it's just a little bit out of their budget.
Sure.
Then there's others that are comfortable, and then there's others, as we know, there's different levels of society. It's no big deal to them, because the
roughest thing for us, and I think a lot of chefs will say this right now. I've actually talked to some who screamed the same thing. Right now, we seem to be in a weird pocket where it is more important that the restaurant makes you feel good about you versus than having quality. Seems to be a big deal. Right now, a lot of chefs are kind of throwing their hands up going, the food's the best I've ever done. It's incredible. And we're not busy enough, but we're watching this other guy who's got a social media stream going that is jamming along.
That's hurt a lot of us, because you and I don't come from that digital market. We didn't grow up with that. So we got to learn that other marketing base to compete on top of everything else.
It's really tough.
It is.
Quality needs to always be at the forefront, I think, for people. You want the best food, support the best food. You want the best service of something, go for it. But if you're...
Do you ship? You ship? Do you like?
No, I can ship our sauce. We bottled our sauce this past year, so we can ship that. We're hoping to see it in some stores over the next few months.
Oh, good. That would be amazing. Get it on the shelf.
Get that. Well, yeah. That now what we've learned about that, because getting the product in the bottle is one thing.
Don't you have to pay for your placement?
There is some of that in some of the bigger supermarkets. Also, though, the markup that they have is so excessive that
so they make the profit. Right?
I could sell it to them at cost, and it's still going to be too expensive for most consumers. Yeah, because we're not scaled to the point where we're able to bring our bottle costs down to a reasonable level. So again, it's another one of those where the big corporates will kill you.
See, that's an interesting statement there, because I've often wondered if I go through any of the big markets on this anywhere. I mean, we've got 5 different big markets. How do they say stocked all the time? You go through aisle. Granted, a lot of it's processed and boxed, but the meat department, you see the bacon, the sausage, the ribs, the pork, the chicken, there's not a shortage right now. But these stores have to buy from the distributor or the market or the farm or whatever, and keep the packaging and all this stuff going. And it amazes me that these huge markets are always stocked for the average. We got to go shopping. We have to eat. Otherwise, we're going to die.
They're pretty good at what they do. That's why they're who they are. I mean, I remember going to some suppliers during COVID.
Yeah.
And there were shelves that were bare.
Empty. I bet.
However... Again, I think during COVID, I think there was a lot of manipulation happening.
You mean like price gouging?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Fully.
Yeah, because they had it and they didn't, even with the hand stuff, the sterilization, somebody would sell a big bottle for $2.
There was a lot of
$7. Yeah, that got crazy. Yeah.
The markets have a game. They have a thing, not a game, but it's just how they do things. They're very efficient. They're very smart. That's how they stay in business. We have to gauge how much we're going to cook today based on a track record.
So then what happens? You think you're going to have 150 plates of food or customers or whatever. Either you run out, which would be a better thing, or what do you do with the leftover? Like, oh God, we've got all this brisket. We've got X number of pounds of ribs left. What do? Do you donate it to the homeless? Do you save it for tomorrow and reheat it? What happens when it's not always equal?
Experience helps. Do we miss once in a while? We're, there is ways to either, there is some product that reheats fine. Brisket does fine the next day, does great. But not after that. So we have things like there's our beans and our chili are loaded with brisket. And actually we have to make sure we have enough brisket to put into them. Ribs and stuff, we figured out ways to utilize them in a manner where the product doesn't suffer at all. But once I see a deterioration in product, no, I just bye-bye. No. As far as we really don't have anything to donate. If we did, we would, but we run efficiently and tight. And once if I see any deterioration, even one day, even the day of, and I've seen someone overcook something, etc. If I don't like the product, it's not going out. I don't want people going. I mean, we're going to screw it up once in a while. It just happens.
Well, that's human. That's normal. But you run a tight ship, Aaron. I come back time and time again. You've got your loyal customers. You got people just like Kathy who discovered it for the first time, and she lives up in Sun Valley. It's not like she's down here, but it's just that you're open all the time. And I know, unfortunately, one of your past employees passed away, and the whole group of employees got together for a service because you guys honor each other, even though they may be out of town. You're still connected.
That was a lot of fun the other night.
You're still connected spiritually because you create that. You create that. You're the hub. You're the light for all these people. You are. So you got to give yourself some credit, even though I understand running a business.
It's hard to. There's times where I can pat myself on my back, but the reality is
it's hard.
Especially at this point in my life, you start to really realize what your role is, and that you're not, I've been in this game a long time and I've had my big moments.
Yeah.
You know what? I go out there, I do what I do, even if it hurts, and there's days it shows, and there's days that I'm in go mode. And I do my best to pick myself up and keep pushing, and inspire people around me. And and it's tough because if you have a slow night, you have a slow night. And we just came off of years of really unpredictable business. It's hard to pull it up, but I look and I go, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do at all. I can teach people that, but I like what I do. And
but
I want to do what I do.
And you're still here, and Boneyard's not going anywhere. It's growing. I can tell you. I'll come in. We'll find a time. I'm taking a trip March 13th to the 20th. I'm going to the North Pole, so I'll come back after that. It's where they have salmon.
They have Santa.
And what?
Santa.
Oh yeah, I'm going to see Santa at the North Pole. I'm going to the Arctic Circle. I just need to get out of here, so I decided to take a trip.
A little bit of a ways. I'm usually good at going to like Burbank.
Yeah.
So.
I just decided to do something big because I know what's coming for me and I need that break. But when I get back, I'll come in and we'll sit down. But I can see where you're headed. But the thing is, I just want people to know Boneyard Bistro. People go online and Google Boneyard Bistro, or go look at Chef Aaron Robbins and read about him and learn. But I wanted him on the air today because it's business. We're all working somewhere, somehow. A lot of you call me, I want to start a business. Okay, fine. Well, you got to start somewhere. What's the idea? Well, I want a channel. I want a store. I wanted this. I want it online. But there's business. There are emotions, and there are rules, and there are structures. And you don't just say, I'm opening the door tomorrow without having a plan. Aaron spent his whole life doing this. I've spent 30 years on radio and 40 years since I became psychic. It's not, you just don't wake up and go, oh, I'm going to do that. And yeah, you can, but it takes a long time to build and perfect it and build the reputation with the people that love you and hate you and things that open and close. And it's hard, but we are going through a different economical shift, people, where you're going to find even your local restaurants are going to be charging you more. And I wanted Aaron to explain it's not because of just the employees, it's everything on the back end, what those owners or franchise owners, whoever's feeding you, what's going on behind the scenes. A lot of it you don't know. And it's going to get worse. I think this year we're going to see some bigger spikes, right?
I saw a crazy one this morning. I actually was reading about
what?
Dynamic pricing. If you go up to the drive-thru and it's peak hours, the prices are higher.
Really?
Yeah.
They do it deliberately because they know they've got the crowd.
If you go up to the drive-thru at 3 p.m, the price will be this. You go in at 6 p.m, the price is going to go up. Like Uber does that kind of pricing. They're looking at doing it at fast food restaurants.
Because they know they can get it because they're going to have the peak.
And there's a thing like we have a deal like after 9 o'clock at night, all barbecues 25% off. But that's like a happy hour thing. But still, I mean, I've never.
But after 9 o'clock,
have an algorithm,
a lot of people don't want to go out at night. There's a lot of people out at night. I don't know that I'd want to eat barbecue at 9 o'clock at night at this point in my life. 10, 20 years ago.
How much you're drinking.
Yeah, that too. I want to thank you, people. You've been listening to Chef Aaron Robbins. This is the Psychic Solutions Podcast. This will be on all 100 platforms. It'll be on Dr. Linda Radio, Dr. Linda Salvin at YouTube. It's going to be on iTunes and iHeart, and I'll get you a link and everything so you can have it if you want to use it for promo and just stick it out there, Aaron. You're more than welcome to take it. But if you're interested in learning more, go and look for Boneyard Bistro. Tell him you want to buy some of his barbecue sauce. People, it's amazing. It's really good food. Otherwise, I would have stopped going 18 years ago. But it's the human behind the wheel that makes it work. He goes to the table. He asks if things are okay. You can sometimes hear some ruckus at the chef's in the kitchen because something didn't go right. Nothing's perfect, but he keeps it balanced. He keeps it going. He's the hub. Without it, this restaurant wouldn't have worked all this time. And through the ups and downs. So every time you think you're losing something, like I keep saying, you just got to keep going. Just trust the process. Keep the faith. And faith without works is dead. You got to show up, people. You don't last for 18 years in one industry or 20 in another or 40 over here if you don't show up. So it's up to you to make your successes, and not every door you open is going to, or knock on is going to open. It doesn't work that way. Nobody has a free ride. But Aaron, I want to thank you for taking the time off of your day. Ignore the message when you get it at the store. And I will stop back in and I'll tell you what I see and how it's going to play out. And what I do is I see where the obstacles are to help people like get beyond the boulder in a little faster way. And if you want to chat with me later, I see all the people chatting here. Everybody, I'm sorry I couldn't chat because I was talking so much as usual. But do you have any we've got about 3 minutes left. Anything like to close, to leave an impression, because you're so good at inspiring because you have a team that loves you most of the time.
Most of the time. That part's tough in today's world.
It is.
From the time when I came up as a cook to now is very different. You got to drive yourself. You got to push yourself. The reality is that I think we see this dreamy world out there because we look through a lens now. We look through a screen. Bottom line is you've got to be driven, and you got to be humble, and you got to understand you're going to make mistakes. And it is tough to pick yourself up sometimes, especially when you get knocked down.
Yep.
And I try to tell myself, and I'm as guilty as anybody, there are days I don't want to get up, but I get up.
Yeah.
I might whine and complain about it all day.
Oh, I don't want to do this. I hate my job. I hate my life. Yeah. Why did I do this? Why didn't I give that? Why didn't I take that? Why? I could have, would have, should. I should have done this career, that career. But whatever career you're in, you still have to work. You still have to do something. You still have to pay the bills, balance the books. Something has to be done that you don't want to do. When you see the end result, it's like, wow, it was worth it. But man, getting through some of it is just treacherous. That's part of the game.
Sometimes it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
And you got to start over again.
Yeah, and then people call my curse. No, you're not cursed. You just not curse. It's just you've got challenges. You got obstacles. Not everybody just rises to the top. Well, some people do because they step on a lot of people, but and they can get there, but then they pay at the other side of the end. And you're right, watching through a lens, especially with TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, everything's beautiful and everybody's face is gorgeous and the clothes and the travel and the food and then everything's buy. It's like social media is nothing but a market, and you think, I can't afford this, but I got to have my makeup this way, or got to do this with the clothes, or eat this way and go to that restaurant. It's insane. It's insane.
No, I get it. I mean, it is, and I mean, I've had
it's hard
since that other restaurant. I mean, it has been an uphill battle and been knocked down the hill a lot.
But you're still there. You're still standing. So if anybody has any questions, you can text me off the air. Go to our, you can email me at drlinda@lindasalvin.com. If you want more information on how to reach Erin, go to boneyardbistro.com in Sherman Oaks. And, this will upload. Who knows? People may pop up 6 months from now. And I'll replay this probably when I'm gone, too. It's a great interview. I'm going to thank you again, and I will come in and see you soon. Thanks for your time, Erin. Okay. Stay backstage. We'll be right back. This is Dr. Linda Salvin. You're listening and watching to Psychic Solutions Podcast every Tuesday. Tomorrow with Candy Finnegan, we're talking about if you're at the fork in the road, what's going to happen with your life. And Thursday, it'll be visions and solutions and on a psychic level. So be sure to tune in, and we'll talk to you soon. And thank you, Rebel. Take us out, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed Dr. Linda Salvin's Psychic Solutions Podcast. You can reach Dr. Linda at 888-509-1077 or at lindasalvin.com. Need a breakthrough of your own? Ready for answers or insights nobody else has? Reserve your own one-on-one in-person chat. Dr. Linda isn't just for other people. Dr. Linda gets results for you. And it's easy. Contact details are on screen now. Just click on lindasalvin.com or call toll-free 888-509-1077. That's lindasalvin.com or toll-free at 888-509-1077.